and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stover. Now, last Wednesday, President Muhammadu Buhari outlined landmark achievements in the last 4 years that impacted positively on the nation, as well as projected programs in consolidating on the gains. In the words of the President, quote, "We are privileged to mark the longest period of unbroken democratic leadership and fifth peaceful transfer of power from one democratically elected government to another in Nigeria." End of quote. The 74-point speech chronicled non-interference in INEC's conduct of the elections, the fight against insecurity, infrastructural growth and investment, as well as other economic gains in taking the country out of recession with an expected growth of GDP right close to 3%. Now, President Buhari is optimistic that with good leadership and a sense of purpose, 100 million Nigerians can be lifted out of poverty in 10 years. The administration, the President also noted, is laying the foundation and taking bold steps in transforming the country and liberating the people from the shackles of poverty. Tonight, the speech of the President is our main concern, the hopes and expectations of Nigerians, and much more. But first, let's get to see this report by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
June 12, 2019 will definitely go down memory lane in Nigeria's history, as the first time Democracy Day will be celebrated on that date different from the initial May 29. With high presence of world leaders and Nigerians to witness this day, President Muhammadu Buhari in his speech rolled out policies and plans for the next 4 years and successes of the past 4 years. The President acknowledged Nigerians and Independent National Electoral Commission INEC for free and fair elections, reiterating his administration's respect for the independence of INEC, ensuring all the resources it needed for independence and impartial management of elections in the country were given.
The principal thrust of this new administration is to consolidate on the achievements of the last 4 years, correct the lapses inevitable in all human endeavors, and tackle the new challenges the country is faced with, and chart a bold plan for transforming Nigeria.
Issues of concern to the President remains the intercommunal and interreligious strife and violence in the country, which he maintained were incited by ethnic, political or religious leaders hoping to benefit by exploiting the country's divisions and fault lines.
Some of the challenges still remain in kidnappings, banditry in some rural areas. The great difference between 2015 and today is that we are meeting these challenges with much greater support to the security forces in terms of money, equipment, and improved local intelligence.
Part of the successes of his administration, as emphasized by the President, is that several rail, seaport and airport projects are at various stages of completion, and that government will open the arteries of transportation nationwide, and as it is, Nigeria has more gas reserves than oil. The President revealed that nearly 2 million Nigerians have benefited from the National Social Investment Program, apart from the Anchors Borrowers Program and School Feeding Initiative, each reaching 2 million recipients. As new elected governors are already hitting the ground running, the President implored all state governors, especially those with large rural economies, to prioritize soliciting of investments in their states in order to develop human capital, reduce bureaucracy and corruption.
We remain resolute in supporting private sector in emphasizing backward integration and export expansion plans.
As the President continues with the next level agenda, critical plans before his government for the next 4 years is to assemble a strong team of Nigerians and allies to implement his government's transformative plans and proposals, while extolling plans to reform tertiary and technical education to reposition Nigeria's workforce for the modern technological age.
We will accelerate investments in primary, secondary, tertiary healthcare programs, interventions, and infrastructure, as well as in upgrading of our medical personnel to stem the flight of our best trained people. Today, I propose the renaming of the Abuja National Stadium henceforth. It will be called Moshood Abiola National Stadium.
It was indeed a speech that gave hope to the people, elicited patriotism and united the nation towards using its diversity to achieve greatness. And the whole world agrees the country has to be a superpower. So how will the president's speech inspire Nigerians to join its next level agenda?
That report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's introduce our guests to you. We'd like to welcome to this program Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu, a former minority leader of the House of Representatives. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.
Let's also welcome retired Justice Adamu Bello. He's an honorable member of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers.
I'd like to also welcome tonight on this program Professor Muhammad Muttaka Usman. He's of the Department of Economics of the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. Prof, thanks for being here.
Yeah, welcome.
Right. Let me also introduce Emmanuel Onwodi. He is Director of Transport Infrastructure with the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, ICRC.
Thank you very much, and good evening, viewers.
Also, we'd like to welcome Kabir Adamu. He's a security risk management expert. Kabir, good to see you.
My pleasure to be here, sir.
And also joining us from our Lagos Network Center is Dr. Olusegun Balarinwa, his Senior Research Fellow at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. Thanks for being with us tonight. We always do on this program. We acquaint you with the procedure. At the appropriate time, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on your screen. We advise you take advantage of them. However, as we always say every Tuesday, for those who are phoning in tonight, when your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. Just reduce the volume. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. Just turn down the volume of your TV set when your call gets through to the studio. And the best way to know that your call has been passed through to the studio is you'll see your name on screen. Once you see your name on screen, it means your call is through to the studio. And just go right ahead. Don't bother about the greetings. Just go straight to your point. Okay? Ask your question, you know, make a comment. And of course, our guests in the studio will be willing to address whatever issues that you might raise. So welcome once again to NTA Tuesday Live. Tonight it's all about the President's speech on Democracy Day, which was last week Wednesday. So let's begin to look at that speech. 74 points. Okay, 74. And each one was meant to address certain specific issues. But on a general note, how did you see the President's speech on Democracy Day?
Well, to me, it's extremely important that everything in this country has been couched into it. The President took time to explain to the people of this country that, look, I am not infallible, and that governments, people could make mistakes, and that mistakes are being addressed, and that 100 million people proposal to be taken out of poverty. And you could also see the sincerity in the admittance that, yeah, there could be some mistakes here and there, and that things are being worked to ensure the country is put back in place. Just like the 4 years that the government took to institutionalize correction, like the fight against corruption. Whatever anybody says in this country, it's a starting point, the fight is on, and we as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back. That's one. Then two, as I said, in other countries where we emulate these kind of things, you have leaders with vision, leaders with hope, leaders that could propose things. In 1961, the former president of US said that in 10 years from today, America will go to the moon. They did go to moon. Now, in this our country, Buhari said in 10 years, hopefully Nigerians, 100 million Nigerians will be taken out of poverty. Now, it's not about Buhari alone. You and I and other governments and also businesses to ensure that this thing is achieved. So I think the president is right on, and I'm sure the people of this country will rally around the government to ensure that people are taken out of poverty.
All right, thanks a lot. Let's go to Justice Adamu Bello and listen to the president on June 12th, Democracy Day. What were your impressions about what he had to say?
Well, good evening, viewers. I will agree entirely with what Honorable Adamu has said. The speech is comprehensive as well as all-encompassing. It touched on so many issues of national importance. Particularly, he touched on the issues of the achievements of his government in the first 4 years of his first term, especially those core areas of security, economy, and anti-corruption. I am more particular about anti-corruption, where our agency is involved. But all these three other issues are also very important. If we look back at the Northeast, where the Boko Haram is on the rampage, occupying, like the president said, 18 local governments. But with the efforts of this government, today, we can say, rightly, that the insurgents have been moved to the fringes of the Lake Chad and the Sambisa forest, even though we can say they find ways of coming, to cause some damage, at least to show that they can still cause embarrassment to authorities. He also touched on the issues of the coming 4 years of his administration, period of consolidation on those achievements that were recorded in the first term of his office. He raised issues about present challenges of banditry. By the way, I am from an area where banditry is ravaging. My Kankara local government is part of the area that is now engulfed in that serious problem. And I think the government is doing very well to tackle those problems. That is his promise, that in this coming second term, the government intends to deal with those challenges head-on. And things have been put in place, and we are only waiting to see the roadmap. What is also important is this issue of lifting 100 million people out of poverty. At least we know that the president has only 4 years in his second term. So this will translate, if you take 100 million in 10 years, it translates in 10 million people in every area. So at least with the determination and with the leadership the president can give, at least we are expecting to see about 40 million Nigerians taken out of poverty. If that can be achieved, I think that is good for this country.
All right. Well, Prof, certainly you must be interested in the question of lifting 100 million people from the shackles of poverty. That, as well as the recovery of the economy, taking it out of recession, and of course the question of the GDP. So let's hear, what was your impression about?
Yes, the speech actually is like a Pan-African discussion, looking at the whole issues in a broader perspective. But normally speech are speech. You have to walk it up. When I was sitting, when he was reading the speech, when he said 10 million out, 100 million out of 40 in 10 years, I said, wow, this is a great job. But the first people that did such kind of thing in the world is China. They lift out 700 million people out of poverty in 20 years. But to do that, there are so many things you have to do. One, you have to invest massively in human capital. There has to be a serious, deliberate attempt to focus on certain fundamentals. Fundamentals like growing the economy at least 10% per annum, consistently. Because China did it in 20 years, consistently in average of 10% GDP growth. And that GDP growth is not by numbers, but inclusive growth, where it will reduce the level of poverty and the level of unemployment and grow the private sector and public sector. How do they do it? They did it on what they call triple flex. On triple flex, there are a tripod within which universities, that is research and university at one hand, then government, then private sector. All the policies that China chunked out in that 20 years, they have to be a well-researched policy framework, then brought into government as a policy, and then leverage on the private sector and give them an enabling environment in order to establish. And what we have seen in the last 4 years, the managers of the economy are more interested in the indices, getting these indices right. GDP grows at 2%, 3%, or the level of tax ratio and level of GDP debt ratio. All those indices, for economists, they are not means, they are just means to an end. It's not an end themselves. So therefore, the managers of economy, of Nigerian economy, must change the tune in such a way that they give more focus on the output that will salvage the income inequality that you find in the country and the level of unemployment. And therefore, there must be a holistic framework within which the economy can be pushed within that level to achieve that 100 million lifting out of.
Fantastic. There's so many issues you've thrown up here, and we're going to consider them in greater detail as we progress. But let's come to Emmanuel Modi, who's Director of Transport Infrastructure. Well, of course, the speech dwelled a lot on addressing the infrastructure deficit in the last 4 years and what's been projected. So you certainly would have been interested in that aspect of it.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Cyril. Good evening, viewers. I think Mr. President has said it very loud and clear, and I think we should applaud him for such a wonderful speech. But first of all, let's congratulate our President for the success at the last elections. So what has he said in this speech? What he has said is that, you know, we've gone through the last 4 years, and then we are ready to do bigger things. He has said it very loud and clear. There are going to be a lot of activities to support infrastructure, human capital. He has projected 2.7% increase in GDP. He has talked about the 45 billion reserve, level, external reserve, and we know as a country that we are burdened with population, but other countries too. China has done it; they've come out of it. India, Indonesia, Nigeria can do it, and he has made it very clear. This country, with an estimated population growth of 411 by 2050, we believe that there's a lot that can be achieved. Now, looking at infrastructure, and if you recall in his speech, he clearly said that despite the resources, pledged already into infrastructure development this past 4 years, there remains the urgent need for the same government to begin to, remodernize our roads, our bridges, commit to electricity grids, the ports and the rail. A lot is happening, even within the infrastructure space. ICRC, for instance, which is an agency of government responsible for, midwifing public-private partnership, we've done a lot in the last 4 years. And I can recall by the last count that I've been able to attract, through private investment alone, through projects approved by the Federal Executive Council, over 2.8 trillion in terms of investment. Now, this wouldn't have happened if they had depended on the National Treasury. And the government has said, look, we're going to develop this economy using a PPP approach, which is a public-private partnership approach, where you begin to lay the foundation and the framework to attract private investment into our infrastructure development. Many countries in Africa, for instance, Botswana, everybody's building infrastructure. Ghana just opened their Terminal C. Look at what is happening with Turkey. Turkey just opened the largest airport with 6 runways, capacity to carry about 200 million passengers. And a lot is happening across the globe. Nigeria cannot be left. So Mr. President is on course, focusing on infrastructure. How do you grow 100 million, take 100 million people out of poverty within 10 years? The only answer is to grow infrastructure. The road sector, for instance, recently the government has started working on the Port Harcourt-Maiduguri road, which is over 2,300 kilometers of road network. Imagine the quantum of labor that will be required. So Nigerians will be gainfully employed. The coastal rail, for instance, is also capable of attracting over 60,000 employment opportunities, etc. If you look at the recently approved Ajaokuta Itakpe Warri standard gauge, which is to attract about $3.9 billion. Government is committed to attracting a lot of infrastructure, a lot of financial private capital into the infrastructure. So the government is clear that we can do this with this is a purposeful leadership committed to delivering results. So this is the next level for Nigerians, and I think as a Nigerian we stand proud to say yes, the government is on course, and we all should come together to see how this vision is met.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kabir.
What was your takeaway from that speech?
For me, the most important thing was the promise by Mr. President. He validated the expectations of Nigeria on the area of peace, and I found that quite interesting. One of the major challenges and issues that happened during the campaign for the election was the discussion around security and whether Mr. President has been able to live up to his promise. In the 2015 elections, he promised 3 things, and it's been discussed by the other panelists: diversifying the economy, tackling the insecurity challenge, and then, of course, an anti-corruption drive. So that promise of peace resonated clearly. Beyond that, I found it quite interesting, as someone who has been studying security in Nigeria, that the president talked about the root causes of insecurity in the country. Climate change, which unfortunately a lot of people have not linked the climate change issue and insecurity in the country. I also found it very interesting that he talked about population growth and the effect it's having on security. I found it very interesting that he touched on poverty and the effect it has on security. He also talked about his commitment to improving the lot of the security agencies within the country when he talked about their equipment, talked about strategy, and then talked about the funding. I also found it very interesting that he talked about national unity. As a security risk management expert, one of the critical points that we've been discussing as a cause of insecurity in the country is the perception of marginalization by several groups within the country. So it was very instructive that Mr. President mentioned national unity as one of the focus of his administration going forward. It's been mentioned, and I would like to emphasize that point, that it's a speech. and it could be a policy direction for the government. Now, what we would expect going forward, and perhaps we will discuss that in the follow-up questions, is what would come out of that speech. How will the agencies that are supposed to carry out the responsibilities develop on those aspects that Mr. President has mentioned?
Okay, fantastic. Just like Prof said, the speech remains a speech until we begin to see the actualization and the drive to take it beyond that. But let's go over to our Lagos Network Center, and then we link up with Dr. Olusegun Bolarima, who's a Senior Research Fellow at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. Thanks for being with us once again. I do hope that you can hear us loud and clear. And so let's hear you about the President's speech on Democracy Day.
Thank you, Cyril, and good evening, viewers. Actually, the President made an interesting speech, not only an interesting speech, it was a speech that sent signs of hope to Nigerians out there, as everybody in the studio has said. Not only that, some of the areas that caught my attention and made me so elated, and I know so many other Nigerians out there, is the issue of lifting 100 million people out of poverty, but not just lifting 100 million Nigerians in the next 10 years out of poverty, but the way and manner he has said it, that it will be done in the next 10 years, he was talking about the diversification of the economy, which had started in the past 4 years, and that before now, we have really dependent so much on oil. But now we are trying to diversify the economy, trying to improve agriculture and other critical sectors of the economy, the solid minerals sector, and apart from that, also trying to make fundings, loans available to farmers, developing the agricultural sector, and trying to make food available. Just like the professor said earlier, one of the critical areas that China worked on for a period of 20 years, lifting 700 million Chinese out of poverty, apart from the infrastructure, is agriculture. They make sure they invested in agriculture. They make sure that food is made available to an average Chinese, because angry man, they say, is an hungry man, they say, is an angry man. So that is why they have invested so much in agriculture. So investing in agriculture that the President Muhammadu Buhari mentioned in his speech is a critical thing. And just like the professor said too, it is one of the action plans that the President intends to do in the next 4 years, which all other regimes would also key into, because it is a vision, and for every vision there should be a mission into achieving some of these goals, some of these objectives, as the President has highlighted them. So I'm so interested in the issue of lifting 100 million out of poverty. So the President really means well, and that's why you see the CBN, even in the last 4 years, even about 2-3 weeks ago, had also rolled out more fundings in order to help the small-scale industries, the medium-scale industries, and more importantly, to make fundings available to farmers and also land. He talked more about the new challenges, new security challenges, the banditry issue we are having now, kidnappings we are having now, and he said all of this will be dealt with headlong, seriously. And he has said there will be more funding for the security sector, the armed forces, the police sector, and other security forces will all be funded in order to tackle some of these challenges headlong. So it's a serious thing, and the President means well, and we hope all of this will come to reality in the next 4 years and beyond.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much. But back here in Abuja, Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu, expectedly, the President, highlighted the longest period, well, I suppose it, of unbroken democracy. It's the first time we've had 20 years of unbroken democracy, and he also drew attention to the smooth, seamless transition of power from one administration to the other?
Yeah, you see, honestly, it's so well done, I mean, by all of us Nigerians. But what is lacking is what Mr. President started, continuity in government, whether PDP, APC, or anything. It's our country, our people, our funds. This government, when it came, continued virtually with all the projects started by previous governments. So that is what is really lacking. So now this government has put in place that kind of a thing. So in the next 20 years, we hope after Buhari, whatever Buhari would have started, and if he does not complete them, the next government coming, whichever party, should continue so that the continuity will not be just from one democratic government to another, but also the projects. Because monies have been put in these projects to ensure that continuity. So, I mean, let's, as a people, celebrate yes from PDP to PDP to PDP to APC. But then APC decided to continue with projects of the PDP. So, in case that PDP loses election, I mean, APC loses election, in case in 2023, the next government that will come should continue. Because, as I said, if that is not done, which means all this transition will come to nothing, will be about just ego. Whoever comes will just do whatever he wants and leaves. So I think this government, just like what he said, the government has put in place, has started, has stabilized to ensure there is continuity in governance. And you could see everybody in this country, it's a witness that, look, rail projects that were started by previous government, they are continuing with them. Some have been completed. Airports, Dadinkowa Dam, the second Niger Bridge, roads all over the place. In fact, everything that has been started by other governments is being done by this government. So, to me, that continuity that you spoke about, from one government to another, the next government coming should borrow a leaf from government of the day. That, look, continuity will mean continuing with our projects, because it is our project. It's not APC project, it's Nigeria's project. So I think if that is done, there will be progress in this country, there will be continuity.
Well, speaking about continuity, well, a stable polity is a prerequisite for any kind of development, certainly. And from what we've seen in the past 4 years, what are we looking at? Basing a look on what the president said, his projections for the next 4 years. What have we seen?
The projections in the fall. Well, what we expect to see, like this issue of lifting 100 million out of poverty, it is very, very important that we start seeing the manifestation of the efforts the government is going to put in place, so that Nigerians can see the efforts that are being made to get people out of poverty.
Well, one of the main stumbling blocks to the achievement of any policy whatsoever is the question of corruption. I mean, the president had talked about corruption also, standing in the way of more gains in fighting insecurity, and just about every facet of human endeavor, you'd find this there. So
that is very true. Corruption, like he said, I think he used to say this on so many occasions, that unless we kill corruption in Nigeria, corruption will kill Nigeria. So fighting corruption is very important. Even issues of insecurity, issue of the economy, all these issues we are discussing can also be linked to corruption. Resources that are supposed to be utilized for the benefit of all Nigerians are diverted and looted. That's why we have all these problems. If we can tackle corruption, I believe our problems is half solved. That is very important. And that is why the ICPC now is more than ready to assist the president in tackling corruption in Nigeria. Right now, as I speak to you, one of our mandates is to conduct system studies in government ministries and MDAs in order to find loopholes that allow corruption to thrive, so that those loopholes are plugged. As I speak to you, about 100 and something of these system studies are going on in Nigeria.
Right.
In addition to that, you must have read in the papers that ICPC also spearheading a team that will track constituency projects. Right now, today, from 18th of this, as I speak to you now, we have already gone out in 12 states of the Federation. In the Northwest, they are going to Kano, they are going to Sokoto. In the North Central, they are going to Kogi, they are going to Benue. In the Northwest, they are going to Lagos and Osun. In the Northeast, in the Southeast, they are going to Imo and Enugu. In the South, they are going to Akwa Ibom and Edo. So they have started this today. This is equal to, even prior to the speech of Mr. President, at our inauguration, he gave us that charge that we should come out with policies that will assist his government to tackle corruption at source. It is very important. You know, people like to hear about convictions, trials that protract. But what is important, if you can prevent corruption from source, they say prevention is better than cure.
Right.
If you can prevent it from before it manifests, it is better. And that is what we are doing, because our mandate is not only enforcement, this prevention mandate.
Okay. All right, Prof. Well, virtually all the panelists here are unanimous about this lifting of 100 million Nigerians from poverty. From what you have seen in the last 4 years, the President listed a number of the intervention programs meant to set the tone for lifting people out of the shackles of poverty. From what you've seen in the last 4 years, would you say it's on the right track? And how much more effort do you think should be put in to consolidate on whichever gains have been made in the last 4 years?
No, certainly those interventions cannot lift out 100 million people in 10 years. What those countries, if you want to study how those countries get out of that numbers of poor people out of poverty within a certain specific time, we can identify certain things they have done. One of the things they consistently among all of them, they have a long-term plan. For instance, Indonesia, they did each 5 years, they have a 5-year plan. We stopped planning in 1985. With the structural adjustment, said medium term is okay. So that's why even what Honorable Farouk said, that when you come in, you change the gear and change the tune. If you have a forceful plan, you can't change it because it's already there, it's institutionalized, so you can't remove it. The second thing is that there must be a well-defined objective from the onset. And therefore, how do we achieve that? Yes, the countries mentioned, Indonesia, China, have the same characteristics in terms of population density, in terms of the level of if you take, for instance, China, Indonesia, and all other countries that I mentioned, none of them has spent less than 10% of their annual budget on human capital, both education and health. But in the last 10 years or 11 years, the highest is 10% on education and health. Health is about 3 to 2%. So in that, what I expect after this speech, then the president will now assemble the team that will look at the nitty-gritty, how do we do that? Unless we focus on that issues, you can't go anywhere on that. It will just be a mere speech. And
so you would expect more attention to education?
Of course. Infrastructure cannot lift poverty. So it's human capital that will generate. For instance, there is no economy in the world that will just develop on infrastructure. There must be people who propel that growth. And once you don't have a human capital that can propel the growth, you can't do it. And therefore, the most essential thing, when you have the human capital, then you invest on that infrastructure that will lift people out of poverty. For instance, industrialization and manufacturing is the easiest way to lift people out of poverty. And if you see the massive people, those sectors normally bring out of poverty is enormous. That's why you see Chinese, even the prisoner in Chinese is productive. So they export even prisoner to serve in certain countries. Okay. So it is, once you have the skill, then you move. Right. I think my take here is that there must be a deliberate attempt to look at how do we plan these things that we intend to do.
Okay. Fantastic. And a key thing you mentioned, the industrialization and manufacturing. And of course, these, to a large extent, will also depend on the infrastructure, particularly electricity. What have we seen in the last 4 years? The President drew attention to the attempts that have been made to address the deficit, and he also recognized that there was still a huge gap ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're quite right. And I quite agree with the points you just made. Part of the things that the government has done in the last 4 years and is, continuing to do is to strengthen institutions. And I'm happy you talked about the ICPC, the efforts you are making. Now, if you strengthen these government institutions, do the same with ICPC, do the same with ICRC, looking at the approval processes, develop frameworks that will enable businesses to grow, build capacity, and I think that's the point he was trying to make. This is all being done. For instance, if PPP, for instance, remains the cardinal for that, across MDAs, now the ministries, departments, and agencies, the government has set up PPP units where the capacity of the PPP officers have been developed to train them and build capacity and have to develop projects that will enable them package both greenfield and brownfield infrastructure projects and take them to market to attract the necessary funding. Except you do that, you will not leave, you remain in the same position. Another thing which also remains very key is that there are policies that are ongoing to support the states also and the local government, because if you develop the federal government, what about the states? These are the channels which you gain development. You develop the infrastructures in the local government, in the states, collaborating with state infrastructure programs and all that. One of the programs that comes to mind quickly is the ERGP, Economic Recovery Growth Plan of the government, where they looked at the economy itself and said, okay, based on, for instance, the master plan, to realize certain, to attract over 48% of that from the private sector. How do we implement that? How do we build that in? So the government is, first of all, strengthening the institutions. For instance, if you take ICRC, for instance, the processes of taking projects to market have been reduced. You do it's a two-stage process. You develop your request for qualification and request for proposal and quickly take it to market. As soon as you do that, the FED grants are approved, and you're ready to go into negotiations and get your private party and go down that line. So the structures are being developed, the institutions are being strengthened, capacities are being built in MDAs to enable these institutions develop projects that can go to market and attract the necessary funding. The problem is not money. The problem is about developing the right project that can attract those kind of funding. So I agree with you. If you look at, for instance, the aviation sector, what the government has done. You recall in the recent months where the government attempt to develop a national carrier. Of course, also recently the concession of the airports that has been done, the 4 airports, the Lagos, Abuja, Kano, Port Harcourt airport. As we speak, the MRO, which is the maintenance, overhaul and repair and overhaul center, have been developed in the market now, looking for investors to come in. These are projects that will attract minimum of $1 billion each of them. If you look at the seaports, Ibom Deep Seaport, for instance, is a project that has gone through the procurement process, awaiting the approval of the government, and that project alone in the first phase will attract over $1 billion into the economy, capable of growing over 15,000 jobs in the first 2-3 years. If you look at also even in the agri sector, like we talked about, the silos have just been concessioned, over 19 silos, which was basically a brownfield project. That's also attracting over $200 billion in itself, capable of also generating over 17,000 jobs, as it were. The same thing applies to other sectors. If you look at the truck transit parks, which the Nigerian Shippers Council is also working on across the country, they're developing truck transit parks, they're building dry ports. They are looking at other infrastructure projects that will, the roads, for instance, we talked about that earlier. The government said that over 2,000 kilometers of ongoing federal roads and projects across the country will be completed, as part of their projections, in that line. They also talked about movement of people. If you know, recently the problem with the challenge we have with our routes, which has instead people going to, for instance, Kaduna by rail. The demand for that has suddenly jumped up. Government is working presently on a ticketing solution to make the process seamless with the Nigerian Railway Corporation, and many other projects has been done. The Lekki Deep Seaport, for instance, it's also been worked on by the NPA. At the federal level, at Ministry of Transport, they are working on projects, building standard gauges. The popular one, the Eastern and the Western narrow gauge project, is also on course. So a lot is being done. If you shift from there and go to the educational aspect, the government has said that, first of all, like you said, the government said they will assemble a strong team of Nigerians that will now sit down as allies to implement and transform these plans and their proposals. So we'll be patient. We'll assemble this team, who will then put together the framework to see how we achieve the 100 million men out of poverty in the next 10 years. Thank you very much.
Well, Kabir, I would say all of these are interwoven and can't really take any one of them in isolation. But back to the question of security, and while the President had praises for security agencies putting their best and more will be given to them in line of duty, there's also the question of ethnic and religious coloration, which he lamented was being given to the question of security. And in other words, he was in effect saying that the matter of security does not know religion or creed or ethnic background. That banditry that's going on there, anyone can be a victim, really.
Exactly. He indicated that there are certain individuals that are inciting Nigerians using our fault lines, which are ethnicity and religion, and then for political gains. That's something that we've been studying. Several reports have been written on that. Incidentally, the DSS, Department of State Service, released a report just around the time the President made that speech, also mentioning the same thing, that they've arrested a few individuals who may have incited the public on the basis of religion and ethnicity. So yes, the President mentioned that. But one of the major challenges that we've noticed in the first 4 years of President Buhari is the inability of the criminal justice system. I think it would be unfair to place it on the shoulder of the security agencies. The criminal justice system has 3 components, but it starts with the security agencies. Now, one of the major challenges has been the inability of the security agencies to arrest offenders. The same individuals that the President has mentioned inciting the public. Now we need to see them arrested, we need to see them presented before courts, and then we need to see them prosecuted. Then the deterrence element will come in. So we're hoping that that's something that we will build upon in the next 4 years. The issues around the individuals themselves who are doing that for political benefit, and I think that's an issue that lies squarely with our politicians. They are the greatest benefactors of the democratic system. Well, they hold juicy offices, they are fat salaries, as we've been told in the National Assembly, in the executive arm of government. And so
he's smiling.
Exactly. I mean, it's in the public discourse. People talk about it, and we've not seen any denial to that. So my point is, if as benefactors of that, and then we have our president actually confirming to us that they are inciting, well, some of them are inciting the public to benefit from it, then I think the reform that everyone is talking about, the political reform that's talking about, politicians need to ask themselves the question. We've talked about 20 years of unbridled democracy. Everybody is happy about that. But how come, as a security risk management expert, if you ask me now, I'll tell you the number one threat to our democracy is the politicians themselves. So I think in that political reform, they need to look inwards and ask themselves. The reports have been submitted by our partners. INEC is currently doing a review of the 2019 elections. The EU has submitted its report. IRI, NDI have submitted their reports, and they've emphasized this point around the maturity of political parties and their inability to stop their members from inciting the public. Now, that's an issue that I think the president needs to look at going forward into the next 4 years, because at the end of the day, we're all benefiting from this democratic tradition.
All right. We'll return to one or two aspects of security, but first let's take in this call if we can. Calling in from Kano is Ismail. Hello, Ismail.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, my name is Ismail from Kano. Yes, I would like to recommend Mr. President. He has made a tremendous effort to see that this nation has achieved a lot. But unfortunately, the Kabas and the National Assembly, some of them have disappointed him. But this time around, inshallah, we pray, may God bless him with good advisors in order to take this country to the next level. Secondly, if you look at the judiciary and anti-corruption war, there are a lot of changes. For example, take the case of Zamfara. During PDP, opposition will never be given that kind of fair judgment. That is the kind of changes we voted for. Finally, I pray may Almighty Allah distance enemy of Nigeria from Mr. President, just like the distance former Speaker and Senate President. Thank you very much, Ismail from Kano.
Right, thank you, Ismail. Well, just before we go over to Lagos to put a question or two to Dr. Olusegun Blarima, there's this aspect I still want you to talk about relating to security. Now, it's important, isn't it, to put it in true perspective that a lot of Nigerians at some point in time would imagine that there would come a day when there will not be any violence, any attack, everything would, all the insurgents would have been wiped out completely. And, you know, so you do get to hear people saying, well, the government said it has degraded Boko Haram, that it has pushed back the insurgents, but you still, hear about attacks here and there, sporadic attacks. And so it's important to also address that issue. And like the president said, no country, even the most advanced countries, have not been able to totally wipe out all traces of terrorism and violence.
No, we need to give the President Buhari administration 2015 to 2019 some credit in terms of how it has gone about tackling some of the insecurity challenges within the country. But to expect absolute security is almost impossible. However, there are certain tenets that every government should try to instill. And for me, one of the greatest challenges that I've seen over time, and it's not fair to put it on the shoulder of the President Buhari's administration, is the absence of monitoring and evaluation within the security sector. So a lot of funding goes into that sector, but there is no transparent manner to follow that funding and ensure that the monies are actually spent for the purposes with which they are voted for. It's a huge challenge. Now, we can look at the legislature and put some of the blame on the legislature. Why? Because the oversight function that the legislator is supposed to exercise should look at that. But beyond that, the executive needs to look at two critical areas: audit and then monitoring and evaluation. Just today, some of us may have read it, the Chief of Army Staff made a statement where he admitted to the fact that the setbacks that have been suffered by the military recently is as a result of lack of patriotism by some of the soldiers in the front line. Now, if he could make such a statement, how come we've not seen in the past arrests of soldiers who perhaps may have deserted in the front line? That's where monitoring and evaluation comes in. You check yourself, you correct those lapses before they happen. So I'm hoping that going forward, that will be done. The second critical element, the appointments of some key personalities within the security and intelligence community. One greatest failure over time that has transited the 5 administrations that we've seen in this 20 years plus of our democracy is the lack of a forum where members of the intelligence organization can complain about issues that affect them internally. So ombudsmen that would look out for those kind of complaints so that they are corrected before they become huge issues. And the interesting thing is that our laws actually provide for that. So I think the president needs to look at that, appoint those ombudsmen so that they can look at issues internally before they become, like at the moment, if you look at the Nigerian military as an example, a lot of retired soldiers are complaining for one reason or the other, and there is no avenue for them to air out those grievances. The next thing, some bad guys may engage them, and then they are trained in weapon handling. Some of them have the expertise that most of us here don't have. So that ombudsman position needs to be looked at, speedily and as much as possible. The third element, very important, is coordination within the security system. I'm very happy to note that the Office of the National Security Advisor has recently launched a draft review of our national security strategy, and they focused on the element of people, looking at the welfare of the Nigerian. Now, that's a document. How do you translate the mindset of the security personnel to ensure that he understands that his own function, primary function, is to protect the life and property of the ordinary Nigerian? It's a Herculean task that all of us needs to work on.
All right, let's go over to the phones again. We have Umar calling in from Kaduna. Hello, Umar. Go ahead. Is Umar still with us? Umar from Kaduna.
Good evening to you all.
Right, good evening. Go right ahead.
My point on this matter is that, my point on this issue is that I want to call on the Mr. President to review about the insecurity sector, because as I'm speaking with you, right now I'm speaking with you from Kaduna, but I'm an indigent from Adamawa State. My local government is facing security challenges, such as kidnapping and robbery. That's the local government. So they used to kidnap people, both inside the city and outside the city of the local government. They used to come with heavy guns, open fire around 1-2 o'clock in the night. And they take people to the bushes, collect 5 million, 2 million, and so many. So collecting ransom from people. So please, I want to call on Faruk Adamu especially because he is the one that I know he is very close with the president.
All right.
And the National Assembly, because I saw him on that day of the swearing of the National Assembly leadership. So please, let him advise the president about Northeast issues. And I wish them all the best for this 4 years coming.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Umar from Kaduna. At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll continue with this conversation, taking a look at the President's speech on Democracy Day. There are so many issues, and one of them, of course, would be the leadership position. The leadership position of Nigeria. Nigeria is a sub-regional leader. It's also a regional leader, and that in itself is one other matter which we would look at as we, x-ray the President's speech on Democracy Day. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Pure, serene, exotic, rare wildlife, big and small, in their natural habitats. Great tourism destinations right here with us. Nigerian National Parks. 7 parks across Nigeria. Cross River, Kainji Lake, Chad Basin, Old Oyo, Gashaka Gumti, Kamuku, and Okomu National Parks, as well as the park's headquarters in Abuja, all in a state of nature. Ideal for picnics, family outings, and sightseeing. We have excellent accommodation, great cuisine, and conference facilities. Visit us today and get memories for life. Contact us at Nigerian National Park Service, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua Expressway, Airport Road, Abuja. Phone 081-1290-7916 or email nigeriaparks_headquarters@yahoo.com. Nigerian National Parks Service, a rare national treasure.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our and me, in our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Tableu,
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, so plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. The Federal Minister of Information and Culture bring on this message.
Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Well, as is usual with us, we took out the cameras. We wanted the citizens to tell us, to give us their own assessment of the president's speech. So what you're about to see is what the citizens, the people, have to say.
Well, the president has laid out the roadmap of what Nigerians should expect of him in this second tenure, and I think he has the goodwill, and I believe with God on his side, he will be able to deliver. I expect a better performance this second tenure. Having learned the rope in the first tenure, I expect him to do much better, and Nigeria should be better for it. He has the capability, tackling corruption head-on, and then with money, once there's no leakage in the system, all the finance that is now gotten should be projected into capital project, and then we should be better off in Nigeria.
Let him work on the economy, especially our relationship with other countries. And then most importantly, let him look into our seaports. Do you understand? Like in other countries, some of us travel out, you buy things. Most countries have free trade zones. Do you understand? So it allows access to goods into the country. And then they should also work on the areas of the dollar rate. Let it be favorable for transacting business, both in Nigeria, as in between Nigeria and other countries. And then electricity, he really needs to address the issue. Either it will leave from the hands of those who privatized it back to the government.
And I believe if there is electricity in the country, our industry will go into work effectively. So there is massive recruitment of unemployed graduates to go into industries like textile production. If government is really working, if it's go into the textile production, it will really provide solution to the rest of unemployment that we're having in the country. So I believe if the government is changing its approach to appropriate, that is the decision to change, that is which will be different from the past tenure, his past administration. I think it will be effective.
When young people have nothing to do, they will resort to crimes, you understand? But when you occupy them with something to do, that is when they will have a focus of thinking about tomorrow.
We have every resources to take Nigeria out of poverty. One, the resources is there. Nobody can say that we don't have the resources. If only 1 billion that called corruption can be tackled head-on, I can assure you that we have enough to take Nigeria out of poverty. Until there is transparency, corruption is totally eradicated. There is no how we can be talking of taking Nigeria out of poverty.
What we can do as citizens is just to pray, support him. We just to hope for the best.
People's voice. Well, let's go over to our Lagos Center now. And Dr. Bolarima, let's use the exact words the president used. He described Nigeria as the big brother to its neighbors, the shock absorber of the West African sub-region. With that in mind, in the last 4 years, What have we seen? What role has Nigeria played in stabilizing the region, given that some of the things we're talking about, like crime, like the insurgency, is also trans-border? And what do you hope to see in the next 4 years?
Thank you. The president has done so well in the past 4 years. And Nigeria has always been a big brother to our neighbors, even in the sub-region of West Africa, more importantly within the ECOWAS. Apart from that, Nigeria has done so well in West Africa. For example, the role we played in the Gambia post-election crisis, when the former President Jammeh refused to leave the position and to hand over to President Barrow, President Muhammadu Buhari and a few other leaders within ECOWAS had to go there and talk to him. And he left. Today there is peace and stability in the Gambia, and a lot of Nigerians are living in the Gambia. In fact, in 2016, 2017, under ECOWAS, as one of the consultants to ECOWAS, I was also in the Gambia. So I saw the way they respect Nigerians, the way they respect the president, the intervention President Muhammadu Buhari took in order to bring stability and peace to the Gambia. Presently, we have a squadron of mobile policemen in Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau has also been in crisis, but we have a squadron of mobile policemen trying to help them also in the Gambia. Apart from that, Nigerians are in Mali as peacekeepers. So we have taken a lot of serious role in maintaining security and stability within the West African sub-region. Then more importantly, one of the very major steps taken by President Muhammadu Buhari immediately he came in 2015 was to tackle the Boko Haram insurgency and insecurity within the sub-region, particularly around the Lake Chad region, by trying to resuscitate the good neighborliness in Nigeria's foreign policy. One of that I did was to establish the multinational joint task force, which today are done so well, not only doing so well, just like somebody in the studio there mentioned, talking under security, when he was talking about the credit to be given to Nigeria under President Muhammadu Buhari in the past 4 years, how they've been able to send Boko Haram packing, and even all of the local governments that have seized in Nigeria, they've been retaking. So the Nigerian government had done so well under President Muhammadu Buhari in the past 4 years. So, and the multinational task force, they are still very vibrant, doing so well. Today, other than the skirmishes of attacks by Boko Haram elements who are scattered around the Sambisa forest and other places, they have left Nigeria. And just like you also alluded to it, Mr. Stoba, there's nowhere in the world where terrorism has been absolutely been wiped out. What can happen to it is that it can be stemmed by building the security infrastructure, security sector reforms, and apart from that, just like President Muhammadu Buhari said in his speech, also giving more funding to the security forces and the sectors so that it can be improved by training, by buying more equipment for them. Look at some of the equipments we bought from America, those fighter jets, B-29 fighter jets that the Air Force are using now to destabilize the activities of Boko Haram. So within the sub-region, within Africa, and at the global level, Nigeria has done so well in the past 4 years under President Muhammadu Buhari, and we have seen all of this happening. Look at even the role we played, even in Mali. Look at the role we are playing in some other countries within the sub-region. So Nigeria has done so well, and our external relations have been very excellent too. You also saw a lot of world leaders visiting Nigeria in the past 2 or 3 years, from Macron to Theresa May, and even to Angela Merkel. So beyond even the sub-region. So Nigeria has done so well externally. And like President Muhammadu Buhari said in his speech on June 12th, on the Democracy Day, he said we are going to strengthen our external relations. What I'm also adding to it is that the president also, I know in his heart, that we want to improve foreign direct investments within the country. If the security of the nation is well taken care of. So there will be more foreign direct investments. Apart from that, that will generate more employment opportunities for the teaming graduates in Nigeria. And I know from that, that will strengthen people, and that will also take people out of poverty. Then I also talk about strengthening the educational sector. If the education sector is strengthened, funded, and well equipped, then we can talk about other examples from outside Nigeria. China has invested in education. Presently, it is a policy in China where about 60% of people are admitted into their technical education sector, and while other people go into other policy areas.
Thank you. Well, let's get back to the phones now, and we have a usual caller on this program, Umar Anachi, calling in from Birnin Kabi. Hello, Umar. Let's hear you tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Siro. And happy Salah to all of you in Arias. Yes, I heard the speech of Mr. President is quite encouraging. And this time around, he tried to match it with action. We have seen so many actions. His body language changes. That is what we want. Yes. And for those, the security issues, I think what he needs to do is, he's a military officer. He needs to do sense of guard, what they call sense of guard, as a security issue. He knows what I mean by sense of guard. And on the issue of corruption, all the ministers, I think all the ministers are not worthy of the appointment. They fail me one way or the other. From the minor case down to list of alleged looters, down to all, they have failed me woefully. So we are praying for him, both to give him wisdom to appoint other people. Other people. We need fresh air, not the kind of fresh air that Jonathan promised us. We need fresh air this time around. So let him appoint new ministers that can give him sincere advice that will lead him to take Nigeria to the next level. Then on the issue of poverty alleviation, let Buhari review the AMCO Borrower program. Let him review the AMCO Borrower program and clear all the grasses there. There are many grasses in that program. So let him review the program and clear those grasses. And let him bring Nasser back to take care of other market women and other programs. Those PCPC programs. Let him bring Nasser back. May God continue to bless our country. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Umar. Okay. Well, back to you, Honorable Farouk Adamwali. I think it was one of our callers, the other Umar, I believe, who called in from Kaduna, who had a message for you. As he says, you're close to the corridors of power, so he had a specific message to deal with part of the insecurity issues, particularly kidnapping and all that, and how this can be tackled, and seeing that this can affect just about everything, all the other plans.
Well, thank you, Umar. But you see, let me also say to everybody that honestly, there has nothing that the president has done deliberately to hurt the system, the people, or the country. There could be mistakes here and there. Yes, there are challenges about the insecurity situation now, like shifting from the Boko Haram to the kidnappings and brigandage in this northwest and north central part of the country. But just like what he said in the speech, that the difference between what happened that time and this time in the security challenge is that the government is meeting the challenges head on. More equipment, more men are also being employed to do the job. And also, my colleague here spoke about the ombudsman. Yes, it's in the system, but I can assure him and also viewers that some of these decisions are not made public, unfortunately. Unfortunately, certain things cannot be said in public. But that does not mean the government is doing nothing. Things are being done to ensure. Of course, anybody that has somebody killed will look at it as if nothing has been done. But what do you do in a situation where everybody looks up to just the president? You and I have also responsibilities, because security is not about the guns you carry about. It's not about the soldiers or the army or the police you have. Also, the local people, all of us, need to assist the security agencies where these criminals are, information, and what have you. So that the security agents, they also lose their lives in these things. They put their lives in harm's way. And a lot of them are killed by these, brigand, people, who are disturbing all of us. But I assure Umar and everybody that things are being done. And in no distant future, you will see the hard hands of Mr. President in decisively dealing with these issues. You will see, and I don't want to preempt anything, but honestly, as I said, nothing is being done, to bring about all these things. And things are also in the pipeline to ensure that, by the grace of God, before the end of this year, there will not be complete eradication of these things, but there shall be a lot of improvement, because certain things are being done which I don't want to say on air, that people like my friend who are in the security group will see, will know. And probably he also knows something, but he cannot say on air. But I assure you and the public that things are being done. Let me just digress a little. I think another Umar also spoke about a cabal. Cabal. That the cabal, and so on. In every government, there are certain persons that are perceived to be cabal. But there are no cabal. In this government, Mr. President is man of himself. Nobody can decide for him what he can do, what he does. So he is responsible for whatever is happening. If anybody blames cabal, well, do I look like a cabal? Somebody said I'm close to him. No cabal. I'm telling you, there is no cabal. Mr. President is responsible for whatever happens. Nobody in this country can tell him to do anything that he does not believe in doing. Honestly, that I can tell you. And for those that know me, I fear no one in this world but God. If there is a cabal, I would say so. There is no cabal in this country. Mr. Buhari is his only cabal.
All right. Well, okay, so, my lord.
Yes. Well, I think even his speech, I think this issue of banditry and kidnapping, I think he said soon we will see changes in the way this operation is being carried out. I think the federal government is trying to put in place some measures that, would improve upon what is happening right now. But I must say, really, we need help, especially in those areas where this issue of banditry is. Otherwise, agriculture that we are talking about is going to be affected, definitely, this year, because many farmers in our areas are not going to the farm because of fear of what is going to happen to them. Some of them have been killed.
Right, Prof, this is hurting this will certainly hurt the economy if it's not addressed squarely, right?
Yeah, so certainly it has a serious implication on the economy, because even people within the country who are willing to invest cannot invest, because investment is about the security of your investment. So virtually there are other things that we can look up to in the economy, because the last period there wasn't any good coordination between the monetary policy and fiscal policy. You find the central bank doing intervention here and there about various interventions which are more of fiscal issues. So I think going forward, I need to see that kind of independence of the fiscal arm of government. And to be fair to the last period, there wasn't any professional touch in terms of the ministry coordinations in terms of that. The second issue, which is very important and very relevant, of lifting the economy up, is the current position the government take in terms of not signing the Continental African Agreement. That is a very good decision. If you go back a little bit, when China said they will not sign WTO, they have been castigated. For over 25 years, they refused to sign, but they were preferring when to sign. They came out and said, it's okay, we want to sign open trade. And they signed. The first 2 years, then European countries start to say they are going back to protect their industries. By then, the worst has already happened. There is no place where you can find Chinese. So it is in Africa, we are the largest economy. And therefore, if we open it up, that's why when the EPA was entered, we contested it. And as well, that time, government also said we will not sign EPA. So those are kind of the things that we want to see on the table. How do we go about solving those economic problems? About foreign direct investment, I don't think Nigeria has any business to look for foreign direct investment at the level. Because in the last 5 years, remittance is above FDI in this country. So I think it's getting the economic indices right. And like I said earlier, the managers of the economy in the last 4 years, they are not really interested in moving the economy, but targeting the indices. For instance, if you said, because even before the last 4 years, when former minister, the superpolars, coordinating minister of economy, Ngozi, was saying, this growth. We challenged her and said that this growth is not inclusive. One, you are growing, you have high level of unemployment, your inflation rate is skyrocketing, your value of currency is depreciating. So what kind of growth is this? So those kinds of things, they must knit it on the board and made a long-term plan that will synergize all those anticipations to actualization. Because once the economy is not doing well, all other sectors will not go well. And therefore, the issue of security is also having toll on the economy. Because if you said the economy is functioning well, for instance, they will tell you that Nigeria is the largest economy in Africa, about $411 billion economy. But they only stop there. They don't take other side of the indices. Because if you said you are taking that indices, for instance, UNCTAD indices said if your economy as GDP grows, you have to invest annually the 19% of that GDP on the economy to sustain that level of growth. So that is to say, if you have 1.2 trillion naira economy, it means your annual budget will range about 2.28 trillion naira. Okay. And the economy is then stagnated on the level of 8 to 9 trillion naira. So therefore, the economy is so squeezed. It's a 12-hour economy. Yes, it's a 12-hour economy. By 8, 10, everybody is off the streets. And you can run an economy with less than 23 to 18 hours of work.
Okay. Let's try the phones again. If we still have this caller from Makudi, Ijo. Hello, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm still hanging up.
Right, go right ahead.
Pardon?
Go right ahead, go ahead.
I should start, okay. You sure about, hello?
Yes?
Yes, sir, I'm on. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your program. Hello?
Yes, go on.
I want to appreciate the program as you are. Hello, sir? It's okay. I would like to really appreciate Mr. President's speech and categorically tell Nigerians that I have no doubt about Mr. President. He spoke well to Nigerians, and I'm sure he's prepared to do more for this country. The fact is that he accepted that the mistakes of the past have been done, and the corrections is expected to take place in the next 4 years. However, I would like to appeal to the President. Now he has not appointed the ministers in his cabinet. That is expected to, steer the affairs of this nation. The other caller was really correct, because there are some people that were appointed into that cabinet, particularly from Benue State, who never knew what it entails as far as agriculture is concerned. You know very well that the people of Benue State are agriculturists. And so we are expecting that the next person who is going to come from Benue State, position, should be someone that believes in the ability of people from the state to deliver in one way or the other. Therefore, I would like to appeal to Mr. President to appoint somebody to deliver. That's one point. Secondly, I want to appeal to Mr. President to, as a matter of fact, look at the situation about the road linking the north and the south. If you look at Benue State, it's the only place that linked originally in the past, linked the north and south. The bridge in River Kasnara, the bridge is totally getting bad. The bridge was constructed several years ago, and if you take a look at that bridge right now, it has become the concern of virtually all Nigerians who pass through that bridge. I want to appeal to Mr. President to look at that bridge and consider whether it is worthy of taking note of to avoid Nigerians being hit by that bridge as the year proceeds, or subsequently when that kind of thing occurs. We are believing that because of his integrity, the man of integrity, the man that we believe in, the man that we know Buhari is, he will be able to do something that by tomorrow, even if he's not there, at least he's still living around. I appreciate you people, and I believe Nigerians who are listening, and we are expecting that for the 4 years to be.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, that in fact dovetails into the question of infrastructure, and of course you've talked a lot about public-private partnership, and this is where we want to go in terms of the private sector encouragement, the environment, enabling environment for the private sector to help drive this economy. How have you seen the last 4 years? Well, the projections going by what the President outlined, the review he did of the efforts in the past 4 years, and what he intends to put on ground in this second term. I want you to assess that. And of course, the issue of roads, yes, you did say that so many roads have received attention, but there can never be too many to give attention to, right?
Well, thank you very much once again. The assessment of public-private partnership in the last 4 years, like you said, to my mind has really been a success story, because a lot has happened. A lot of projects have been developed. As I speak, we've issued over 73 outline business cases. So outline business cases are, the business case you prepare and get approved that indicates that projects are economically viable and socially viable. Economically and financially viable. And then you go to your procurement phase. We've also issued over 30 full business cases. The full business cases indicate that these projects have now finally, gone through negotiations. We've secured preferred bidders, and they're ready to go to financial close. And then these projects can start working. So we have a pipeline of projects that has been developed in the last few years. These projects some have been negotiated, some have been trying to attract financing, etc. Part of the problem that you talked about in terms of, and I think the president's speech talked about it also, where he mentioned that when economic inequality rises, it also affects insecurity also rises. But when you address them through through investment in social and hard infrastructure, you don't reduce insecurity. For instance, if you speak to the lenders, and if a lender is foreign lender or local lender trying to lend to infrastructure projects, put a premium on the the rates, it becomes higher to lend because of the issues of insecurity, the investment climate. They're not sure the kind of risk allocation to attribute to each of the projects. So it makes the cost of funds, expensive. But if you address the issue of insecurity, it brings down those indices, and then you're able to grow along that path. So PPPs have actually done very well, and that is no wonder the president actually mentioned, that it will be part of these programs to be executed on a PPP basis. And then if you see each time you mention, it comes back to infrastructure. Whether there's soft infrastructure, hard infrastructure, social infrastructure, economic infrastructure, they are all part of the same plan. So in the last 4 years, the ICRC, being the umbrella body, has been able to move. We've been able to issue guidelines. We've been able to support the MDAs. We've been able to provide also collaborative support for the states, helping them to develop their PPP programs, PPP guidelines, running capacity building programs at all levels for the states and other MDAs. At the same time, also we've put together workshop conferences to enlighten lawmakers, to provide guidance for the executives and all that, so that capacities will be built, and then we're able to face the challenge. Like I talked about capacity earlier, you need to develop your projects to take it to market. The private sector have the capacity. The public sector also have to build the right capacity to match, them, because you have to sit at the negotiation table to negotiate your transactions and be able to put across and get a proper commercial close, across sectors, whether it is, agric or power or dairy, or even within the prisons. We've done PPPs in the prisons where you introduce PPP schemes to develop correctional centers. That helps you develop proper place for when inmates go there, they come out reformed, as against what we have presently, where the conditions of these facilities are nothing to write to me about. So PPPs are being structured across sectors, whether it's in the prison sector, rail, road, energy, power, education, etc. So a lot is being done, and we are ready, fully ready, with the pipeline of projects, with the support from the government to develop the transactions, to move them as quickly as possible, and get them not only to commercial close, but making sure that they get to financial close, so that lenders will be able to put down their money and invest in our economy. Our population is there. The enabling environment is being provided for investments to come. So no wonder those investments, those capital flights have started coming back because people are taking positions to be able to invest in the next level agenda of the government. So I believe that PPP remains, a very important, scheme of the government in driving, infrastructure development in Nigeria. At the same time, also, the recent approvals, granted by just the last Federal Executive Council, if you recall, part of them addresses this issue of social development and all investment at small scale. For instance, the SMA portal that has just been developed is a novel idea where you, instead of individual investors, setting up their own platform, the scheme is such that they can all plug into a particular app, and then what then happens is that it reduces the cost of transaction, the cost of doing business, and then you're able to grow at a very cheaper way and a cheaper cost. At the same time, we also witnessed other transactions where we've been able to develop, quick processes and enabling the generation of funds that will, help to attract, the much needed. So the government is on course. The institutions are there to support it, and I think we're on course really. With the support we also gained from the National Assembly and the executives, and I think things have been done right.
Right. Let me just quickly take you back to something one of the callers said, Kabir. He talked about time for a change of gas. Is that all there is to it?
Unfortunately, no. We can look at it at three levels: the policy level, the strategy level, and then the operational level. And for each of these levels, there are things that need to be done to improve the situation. I talked earlier on about our national security strategy that is headed by the Office of the National Security Advisor. At the policy level, the harmony between the executive arm of government and the legislative arm of government, hopefully, in this coming 4 years, given the fact that the APC has the lead in both houses, the Senate and the House of Rep, we probably would not see what we saw in the 8th Assembly. So we hope to see an improvement in policy decisions. One of the key areas that I'm hoping to see is improved coordination within the security sector. In the last 4 years, we saw instances where certain arms of the security agencies fought openly. Just before the elections, we were told, I don't know how true it is, but I've heard from very reliable sources that the leadership of some of the agencies were not even talking to each other. So how do you expect, coordination between them? And at the operational level, we've had instances where one arm of the military will be accusing the other of sabotage, and publicly, and that's at the operational level. Then even talk about intelligence. I'm very concerned that the president has directed the creation of intelligence fusion centers. And as far as I know, those fusion centers have not, even if they have been created, they are not very effective. I'm happy to note in his speech that he mentioned intelligence as one of the key to solving the security challenges in the country. But how do you gain intelligence if you're not able to win the hearts and minds of the people? So I would expect to see in the next 4 years a change in the ethos of the functions of the security agencies. Every Nigerian needs to embrace security. I hear this message by public security officials that security is everybody's business. Now, that's you talking. But how do I believe that security is my business? I only believe so if I see you working to protect me. If I have to pay for you to protect me and I don't have the money to pay, then I'm probably not going to believe that security is everybody's business. So that ethos of the functions of these agencies need to change so that every Nigerian understands that they are working for him. They are actually working for him. But do the villager whose is suffering the ban on the use of motorcycles in Katsina as an example. Right. And the only means of transportation he has is motorcycles. And nobody has explained to him why that ban is in place. Or in Borno, where local government markets have been shut down and people cannot go to these markets. Meanwhile, people need to go out, sell their wares, and then use the money to buy equipment. A pregnant woman needs to go to the hospital. Facilities have not been provided to tackle that. So it's difficult for people to take ownership of the security operations and strategies when they don't understand why you are putting those measures in place. So I need to see an improvement in strategic communication by the security agencies so that the residents of those locations understand why these things are happening. Now, I mentioned earlier on that there are three components, the policy, the strategy, and at the operational level. You have to put all of that together through coordination. And this is where I think the Office of the National Security Advisor needs to play that role. Currently, under our security architecture, that office plays that role. But I think the fact that it has an advisory role, it's hampering its performance of that role. So perhaps the National Assembly needs to look closely at that. How do you enhance the capacity of the Office of the National Security Advisor to play that coordination role? Then the Ministry of Interior, that also has an element of that coordination role. How do the two work together? A lot of issues have to be discussed. The President, I'm now moving to the international level. Yes. The President talked about bringing together countries in the Sahel, where he will host a conference, which is very, very important. We're currently seeing collaboration between the terrorist groups in the northwest and terrorist groups in Mali and Burkina Faso. So if nothing is done, very soon we would see an Islamic State in West Africa province that cuts across the Lake Chad Basin into Mali. And states in the northwest will be affected. Meanwhile, at the international level, you have the multinational joint task force in the Lake Chad Basin, and then you have the G5 in Mali. Now, interestingly, two countries that are members of the multinational joint task force are also members of the G5. As a strategist, I've asked myself, why do you have that when Nigeria could have easily played a role in the sub-region and made sure that we have just one agency, as it were, and with probably two bases, one in Mali and the other one in Chad. Because remember, these two bodies don't have money. Funding is the major issue that affects them. So why have two in the first place when they are dealing with the same enemy, which is more or less ISIS and Al-Qaeda? So that's the kind of strategic thinking I expect the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Intelligence Agency, and other arms of government to be advising Mr. President as he holds that conference. ECOWAS needs to also play that role. Then speaking about weapons proliferation, small arms and light weapons, which is another major challenge that is contributing to insecurity in the country. I don't know why we are yet to have a commission on mopping up the small arms and light weapons when ECOWAS has actually recommended that more than 10 years ago. The presidential committee that has been handling that function, as far as I know, is not as functional as it used to be. So the 9th Assembly, together with the presidency, needs to speed up that action, have a commission, and immediately begin the role of mopping up those small arms and light weapons. And tied to that is the proliferation of those weapons through our borders. That meeting that the president will have, I need to say, strengthening of the immigration and policing functions between the countries in our neighborhood, so that particular element, weapons proliferation, is blocked. Because no matter the measures you take, if weapons are coming in at the rate they are currently coming in, those measures will not be effective. So like I said at the beginning, policy, strategy, and operations.
All right, we are into the last few minutes of this program now. So let's go to Lagos, and then we'll ask Dr. Balairwa to just give us his closing comments on what we've been discussing so far. We just have about 5 minutes to go.
Generally, Nigeria will move forward in the next 4 years, hopefully by the grace of God. The president has already indicated all of that in his speeches. And more importantly, security is very important. It's a key to the success of this speech and all the promises the president has made. Apart from that, if there is security, the economy will move very well. If the economy moves very well, people will be happy. If people are happy, there will be employment opportunities, poverty level will reduce, And if the poverty level reduces, then we can be talking about killing hunger and removing or moving people out of poverty. Beyond that, the president should also take into consideration, just like the last speaker said, security sector reforms, not only at the national level within Nigeria, but in that Sahel conference is proposing, they should also try to do that at the regional level or sub-regional level. By so doing, there will be proper coordination of the security apparatus of the entire sub-region, and a common enemy in the menace of this terrorism, ISWAP or the Al-Qaeda, or all of other terrorist activities that we are having in the sub-region and the Sahel and the Lake Chad region can be doused or reduced to a larger extent. We hope Nigeria will move forward. We hope Nigeria will move to a greater level and the next level by the grace of God.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Farouk Adamu.
Well, mine is just about, appeal to all of us. You know, let's look at this country as ours. I mean, because the moment we start putting blames at the doorstep of government alone all the time, there will be a problem. So I think we as a people need to agree to assist ourselves, us by ourselves, to ensure that the local governments do their work, the states do their work, and of course the federal government, so that if the combination of everybody and then we totally as a people reorientate ourselves, different approach to different things, because the policemen we accuse, they are a reflection of Nigerians. If we accuse the military, they are a reflection of all of us, or the judiciary. So let's all agree as a people that from today henceforth, each and every person will contribute his quota in ensuring we have a better nation.
All right.
Well, my own is to assure Nigerians that we now have a new ICPC board and manned by members who are all very eager to make impact on the war against corruption, and a chairman who is our colleague, who is also providing the kind of leadership that is required to move that agency forward. We have competent officers who are now assembled, and they are working assiduously while trying to make impact within the shortest possible time.
All right.
Prof. Yeah. Mine is just to say that I'm looking for well-coordinated approach to all the economic issues, and also continue to, at any point, to fine-tune, because economic issues are not static, so there must be a purposeful plan, and taking that plan to the promised land. And it's doable. We have all the professionals that we require.
Well,
Yes, taking a clue from the president has always said that if we do not kill corruption, corruption will kill us. We, the ICRC, right from my highly esteemed DG, Engineer Chidizu, and the rest of the staff, we've always also said that if we do not close our infrastructure gap, it will kill us. As a matter of fact, it's already killing us now, so we have to fight it. So the message is that, look, the ICRC is well positioned, ready, reinvigorated, and with the focused leadership to ensure that we support the administration and deliver infrastructure as quickly as possible. That would be my take. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks a lot, and you do get the final one, really.
Thank you. I would just call, like what I said at the beginning, we need to see more monitoring and evaluation within the security sector, manage them as a project, and then finally improve auditing so that funds that go into security are audited properly, and then what they are meant for is actually done.
All right, thank you so much. As I always say, no one program can take care of all the issues. There'll certainly be some other time. We'll congregate again and take a look at what has been achieved so far and see just whether this president in his second term is matching words with action, which is what has been recommended here. But for now, let us say big thank you to Dr. Olusegun Bolarima, who joined us from our Lagos studio. Thank you so much for being part of this program. All right. And back here in the studio, Honorable Farouk Adamu Aliyu, thank you very much. thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir.
And just the Mubellu, it's been a pleasure hosting you on this program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Professor Usman, we thank you very much. Thank you for being here. And Emmanuel Amodi, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And thank you to Kabir Adamu.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Well, it's also thank you to you too for being part of this program. Next week we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.